Hey folks, Don here. Before we get into this episode, I just want to preempt with there's been developments since this conversation, wherein the management team of Paizo has voluntarily recognized the union the Paizo workers have put together. So great news for everyone. A lot of work went into this, a lot of quick work went into this, and now a lot more work has to go into getting everyone what they feel they deserve. And yeah, just want to let you know, like, this is a great conversation. Having Jenny Jarzabski on was a delight. I've been wanting to get her on for a good bit. I'm a big fan of her work. And so this is still a good, valid conversation to have. But when we get into the union stuff, which is also good information, um, hours after this conversation, we got the news. So I let a couple days go by and decided to post it now because I still want this conversation out there. And please continue to support Paizo workers in their efforts. And that's it. Have a great day, everyone. Hello and welcome back to Hexgrid Hangouts. This week I am joined by Paizo talent legend, Jenny Jarzabski, who is a Starfinder developer now working on the modules and the APs. So welcome to the show, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Continuing the conversation of everything around Paizo, hashtag Paizo accountability, hashtag unionized Paizo, and everything going on there. Before we get into the very important parts, I do want to talk about just what got you to where you're at. When did you start gaming? Where did you start gaming? And like, what's been your progress, your journey to today?
All right. Well, I say this a lot on like interviews or when people ask me that question, but I feel like I started gaming. I didn't start playing tabletop RPGs until it was like just after college, but I feel like I started gaming when I was a kid because, you know, we all play those little like imaginary pretend games.
Yes.
I always did that, but I was kind of this proto GM in a way because I was always the kid who was coming up. Like other kids would come to me and be like, "What are we playing? Like, what should we play?"
Yeah.
And I was always kind of doing like deciding what our game was and, you know, picking or I was playing like villains or kind of side characters so that they could be like, you know, the heroes, whether it was something we made up or we're playing out, you know, Power Rangers or something like that. And so I feel like that's always been part of who I am. Like when I was really little, I was a weird kid that just walked around and I literally told stories to myself out loud. And everyone thought I was really weird until finally some other kids came up and were like, can you tell us what you're talking about? And then that's how that kind of started. And you know, I got into forum like text-based role playing when I was a teenager. And I also took on a similar role of like sort of helping plan the big storylines, you know, the meta plot of our RP. And then after college, I had a couple in high school. I had like a D&D encounter that didn't really go well because it was old school D&D. I was a friend's dad, super awesome, nice people. But I came in when they were doing like treasure and like accounting essentially after a long dungeon. And I just, yeah, I just couldn't hook into it. And like, after that, my attention wandered and I was just like, eh. But after college, I had a friend, I worked at a comic book store part-time and she was like, "Do you want to play one of these games?" "Okay, I'll give it another shot." And she's like, "Yeah, I run this game called Pathfinder." And that's how it started. Like that's the rest
awesome.
is history. Yeah.
That's and I just had a conversation literally last night with Brian Bauman, and he brought up like, yeah, as kids, like we play pretend all the time. I am the eldest brother of 3, so it kind of fell to me to like certainly not dictate what we did because I was the oldest and therefore the villain automatically, but like, you know, I was the one pushing, like, you know, if we're playing Power Rangers, you know, someone has to be the baddie because they want to be
Right.
the heroes, and I'm like, I got very good at my Lord Zed impression.
That is so funny.
And
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, so cool. Yeah, I love that. How, like, where we start as gamers isn't necessarily when we're buying our first math rocks, when we're
Right.
doing the whole Stranger Things montage. It's way, way before then, and that's a real bummer that GM. I'm sure they meant well, and I'm sure those
Oh,
players were
yeah.
dying to do their accounting portion of the adventure. But oh boy, what a way to step into it.
Yeah, and I think I may not have been ready at that point anyway, like, to
Sure.
sit down and have the attention span to do that, but, so that's kinda how I got started with gaming, and
Yeah.
it's funny to hear that one of my coworkers and fellow union people that he has such a similar life experience. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, I eventually ended up going to some conventions because I got really into Pathfinder, particularly org play, and I was like GMing. I started volunteering,
Hmm.
and I was volunteering at Gen Con, and I was sitting at the info desk talking to new people and trying to hype them about like come in and play in the Sagamore. And
Yep.
this guy comes and sits down next to me, and he was a super nice dude. Like I had no idea who he was. He introduced himself. His name was Owen, and I was talking to him, and it turns out I was sitting next to Owen Casey Stevens
Yep.
because he'd been sent up to help the volunteers
Uh-huh.
when he was still at Paizo. And he basically talked to me and found out I liked to write and that I play the game. And so he's like, well, why don't you freelance? And
Hmm.
I was like, wait, that's an option. so I got in touch with him. He had me do some third party stuff, and I've just kind of worked my way into working like doing freelance for Paizo and just at being reliable and getting to the point where I had a reputation and I was very prolific. And so after like I want to say I've been doing that for probably 6 or 7 years now, and I got to the point where they started asking if I wanted to do contract development work.
Mm.
Because they felt, I guess they felt that I had a pretty solid handle on their adventures, and I said yes. So I did a few rounds of that when they needed help, and then when an opening happened, I was actually reached out to, and as a like kind of a short list of people. All told, I've actually applied for Paizo. Like I've applied to work at Paizo 3 times. The first time was when I was not at all qualified and I'd been freelancing for like 6 months, and they told me we want to use you as a freelance author because we thought your writing sample was great, but you're
Hmm.
come back later. Then I applied. I applied again, but I dropped out because I didn't think I was ready to move, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then the third time they reached out to me, and I was like, okay, let's do this, and I got hired.
Nice.
So
And when you
yeah,
say move, this was the full on what many people at Paizo,
yeah.
including Brian Bauman and Jason Tondro have said, like, you got to be in Seattle. Like, it's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
All
I
right.
don't yeah, not necessarily the best thing, but yes, you do most people are do have to relocate. So
Hmm.
since I knew that was what I would have to do, it took me a while to get to where I was ready for that. So
Gotcha. Cool.
yeah.
Nice. And yeah, I looked at your credits. I'm like, oh boy, we're gonna be talking about organized play because that's how I got started.
Oh, nice.
2016, 15.
Mhm.
It's only been a couple years. It took me a little bit to cross over that like taboo barrier my friends and
Yeah.
I built into us. Like, okay, we're nerds and geeks and losers and all that things, but we're not Dungeons and Dragons players, right, guys? But eventually, sitting around drinking Mountain Dew, playing Halo was getting old, so I took that step across, and I haven't looked back. And yeah, so I joined a local. Well, my coworker harassed me for months into joining the uh, local gaming stores organized play, and it was Pathfinder. This was 16 because the next year Starfinder was coming out, and that blew my brain up because then I'm like, oh, I need to learn this system so I can do the sci-fi system because sci-fi is really where my heart lies a little bit more. And so yeah, 2016 is when I started. Cool.
Nice.
I can trace that back now finally, and I loved it. I loved how The people that championed Paizo, you know, they really set me straight, and like, some of them were a little overzealous that this was the only valid game in town, and I'm like, sure, whatever. I'm 25 and don't know what I'm doing with this thing. So it was great. The continuous story, the references, and a little geek thing about me. Like, if you put a reference to something from something else, even if it's like a person, a line, that's like that's trying not to say crack, but it's very much like that's what I latch onto. That's what I crave is continuity, which is a weird
Mhm.
thing to love. But so like Grandmaster Torch would show up, and or Grandmaster Torch? Yeah, that's not a Torch.
Yeah, no, you're right. Mr.
Yeah.
Torch.
Yeah, so I'm like, "Oh, that's him. I know him from that." And they're like, "Yes, yes, but your character doesn't know that." Like, "Oh," and that's how I learned metagaming.
Right? We all have to learn it at some point, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So that was a fun thing, and yeah, Starfinder Society came out. I immediately was one of the quicker leveled up players, and I eventually got a home game, and I kind of like dropped local gaming store thing for that's when I made the home game, and within 6 months they wanted to do a podcast, and that's where this launched. So like,
Well, nice.
yeah, love it. So, real quickly, because I do want to give as much time as possible to every the important things going on, but because you're developing modules and APs,
Mhm,
how are you feeling? Like, I've talked to a couple people about the process of creating society scenarios. Like, what kind of a gear shift was it for you to switch to the bigger APs, like full on 6 book, 3 book
yeah,
adventure paths?
it's pretty different. I just moved over. I guess it's been about a month since I actually started making that transition.
Mhm.
And so I don't feel that I have a super great I mean, I think I'll have more to say on that like next year in
Sure.
6
Yeah.
months even. But
Mhm.
I mean, it is a difference because there's hard parts to both of the jobs. Like there's challenging things like with SFS or PFS or play, you are basically having to come up with typically it was anywhere from like usually 2 adventures a month to sometimes you would have like 3 or 4 coming out for cons. Like Gen
Yeah.
Con season is very busy. And of course, we've had some as the budget changed, we did cut back some adventures. So now Starfinder typically has like one and then sometimes like it'll have two or a bounty. So it's a little less, but
Mhm.
it's a lot of I mean for most of my time I was basically outlining and developing 2 scenarios a month, and it's a lot of ideas to come up with. The turnaround's quick, so it's kind of there's a crunch and stress aspect there, but you also get to see your work and your ideas come out in about like anywhere from 3 to 6 months after you first outlined them and assigned
Sure.
them to an author. So
Mhm.
you have this really quick turnaround, so you can really like learn and kind of see like mistakes and things that people really liked, things they didn't like, and you can adjust on a much faster schedule, and you can afford to be experimental with your ideas because there's just so much content, right? Like
Sure.
if one thing is like we don't want anything to be a flop, but if one thing isn't well received, it's like, oh, all right, maybe we won't try this like super weird, like AI, like go into an AI's mindscape or something. Like I don't know, like some really wacky idea, or maybe
Yeah.
people loved it and it's like, okay, so we need more of this, right? Like we need a
Yes.
follow up. But with APs and modules, now we only have like I think it's 2 APs and like 3 modules essentially coming out a year.
Mhm.
And with it's a print product. It's not just a
Yes.
yes. And so you take a lot longer to work on it. So like right now, I just outlined a module that I believe will come out. It'll be next year. I think it comes out like end of next year or early 2023. And my first AP that I will start outlining, I want to say in like February, March, that won't even come out till 2023. And so it's like you still can take risks, but you have to be I feel like you have to be more careful about them because
Mhm.
you're just investing so much in this and in this product, and you're not going to even see it come out until like a year from when you work on it, which is so weird. Like I'm used to that as a freelancer, but as a dev, it's a very different experience.
You thought
Um,
once you were a dev, like, no, I should see more. I should
yeah,
have more.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to comment that, yeah, the
Mhm.
society play uh are PDFs. So like, oh, you know what? We need to fix this.
Yep.
Well, it's a task to do, I'm sure,
Oh
and
yeah.
then to announce it, to errata it, and then put like for a AP or a module, like that's ink, that's ink, friends.
Yeah,
We need
no,
to.
yeah, chances are those will never be reprinted unless we
Yes.
do like a special, like a collector's
Hmm.
compendium, like like with Curse of the Crimson Throne and like
Yep.
all those, old school, like popular Pathfinder ones. But yeah, it feels like there's a different pressure because in org play there's a lot of pressure to constantly have new ideas and keep it going.
Yep.
But if you screw up a little bit, like, well, okay, we can fix it. Like we can go on the forums and tell the GMs,
Yes.
sorry, it wasn't DC. One of my favorite ones, it was we ended up with like a DC like 180 because someone accidentally put a zero at
Oh
the
no.
and we're like, yes, it's a DC 18. Like I promise.
Yes.
It's possible, but you can do that. But with the AP, it's like, sure, you have less ideas to constantly throw out,
Hmm.
but you have longer, but like it better be perfect as you can make it
Yep.
because there's no change, like there's no going back. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
a decade and a half when a new edition is coming out, like people will still tell the tale of the time that I mean, this isn't from an artist standpoint, but when the Armory came out and they had the shell knuckles. Oh my
Oh
god,
wow.
people won't stop. Like to this day, people are hammering the shell knuckles Starfinder item because the shells are facing the wrong, quote unquote, wrong way, and I'm like, you it's a fantasy game, guys. Let's like loosen up a tiny bit. But like that's a thing. Or no, maybe it was core rulebook that had the shell knuckles. Whichever book had the shell knuckles, it was a gloved weapon that had two shotgun shells on the back of the hand, and like I can't. I'm very much, maybe too much online. Is probably the actual problem here, but like I am constantly seeing things like little nitpicky things, like it's like propped up as like this is incorrect. Okay, cool. And then when I hear it, I'm like, yes, yes. It's not a meme, but like everyone's journey is different. Like, oh, okay, you're now discovering that, and I'll be on the Starfinder Discord, and someone will um talk about. I'm like, yep, yep, that's a thing, and we're moving on, right? So yeah, definitely understand how it's probably a finer tooth comb that you have to go through with those APs.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I'm still kind of like I'm learning a lot of the processes are the same basically, but there's an extra layer of, like things that you have to do for print products like pagination is something I never had to do because you have to know exactly what page,
Hmm.
this is going to go on because it matters. Like all our books are restricted to like our print books must be and x number of pages.
Yes,
And it's like copy fitting becomes a little bit more, it's something because we do copy fitting. Org play, we do our best, but it's like, okay, if it's a little messy, like well, whatever. Like they
yeah,
don't, that's not the point. But with a print book, it also needs to be aesthetically pleasing as much as functional. So
absolutely,
oh
yes,
yes. So
yep.
yeah, totally. I mean, in some ways the same, but in a lot of ways it's very different for sure.
And you've only been at it a month, so
Yeah.
like, so right now it must be really cool to you for like, oh, this is like just the maybe not culture shock, but just the culture shift of like.
Mhm.
And so this is a term I learned from Tandro. Are you like officially in the Star Chamber when you're a developer, or is that like, or are you like even when you were doing society play, that's still Star Chamber. He very much loved that term.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, no, I have been in the Star Chamber, since I was hired or and since I was especially since I was doing Starfinder Society as the
Gotcha.
line lead, yeah. No, I've
Very
been in
nice.
there, but now we joke though that we're, like, we still use Star Chamber, and that's actually the name of the channel in our teamwork, so it's
Nice.
it's cool, but we also, we recently went to do, like, a little day in the park and have pizza to, like, bond, and, we're gonna do Dune next, I think, go see the movie, but we
That's
decided we
awesome.
started calling ourselves J Squadron, like, I said it jokingly, and then they're like, "No, that's really good because our names all start with J."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Keely, Tondro,
yeah,
Jarzabski. Who
yeah.
is there anyone I'm missing?
Well, we have Joe because he's Starfinder
Cassini,
lead
yes.
designer,
Of course,
Pacini,
yep.
yeah, yeah, Tondro, Keely, and then I guess me,
Mhm.
Joe. Yeah, I'm like, if I'm missing someone, I'm so sorry, y'all. And now we have our new Starfinder Society dev who came in after me, Jessica. So she's a J too. Although,
Catalan? Jessica
yeah,
Catalan?
Catalan. Yep.
Awesome.
hmm
Cool.
Yeah, I can say that because she announced it on her social media. So it's like,
Yes,
cool.
yep.
I can say it now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so excited to have her be like the heir to the next Starfinder Society first seeker leader
It's
person. So
it's it's
yeah,
so good.
yeah.
Full disclosure, did you do anything with, the commencement, module? Or not module, scenario?
No, that was
Okay,
before my time. I mean, I've
okay.
run it many times, but
Yeah. The very first, episode of this that I was basing this cruise, I'm only telling this because I thought if you had done it, this might have been fun for you, but, so you played a lot, you know the people,
Mhm.
obviously, but, my people, like, I needed a hook, and, they were all kinda broken people and wanting a new life, so, this podcast began with the players, joining the Starfinder Society, basically using commencement as, like, hey, we need you. They met Radazam. They chose like which I had them kind of do like a not a house sorting, but like you're all just hired mercenary types. So
Mhm.
at Radazam's gonna want you, and I had a whole thing. They met like I basically lifted the commencement for my first uh the premiere of this show, and it was
Oh,
just
nice.
so fun to like go over the lore. I very maybe to a fault, not really, but sometimes I'll like latch on to things. That first session, they one of the players really liked Strawberry Machine Cake because it sounded funny, and I found some funny, funky music, and like it became a thing. And it's
Nice.
been so good to weave that lore in with this. Like currently, um, I even made up a calendar where currently it's like the second week of 318, and my players don't know this. I don't know if they'll listen to this, but because it's my voice. But pretty soon the Scoured Stars the rescue is about to unfold, and I'm
Oh,
curious how I'm gonna
nice.
play that. So it's so good. Like all of you do great work. I've gotten to know a fair few authors, some of the freelancers.
Mhm.
I've had Allison Seib on here. I've had I think that may be the only society person really, but like hearing the story, hearing their what they can share of the process, it's just so cool. And that rapid fire, it feels like comic books, like just rapidly getting things out, all these different people, the artist having to get with them and confer notes. So awesome. I think that's enough of this. We've got a whole lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on. um I had Brian on last night, and he said there wasn't really anything he could share. Monday's kind of like the big day when news can drop. You're all waiting for the deadline for the Paizo management team to voluntarily recognize the union. So
Mhm.
I'd just like to get from your perspective, how are things going? How are you doing? And uh, all that.
Sure. So yeah, that is kind of our next step now. I mean, we've had months of preparation leading up to this. It's certainly accelerated within the past. within the past month, like when allegations were made on Twitter, and that kind
Mhm.
of put a spotlight on Paizo. And we also got that overwhelming amount of support from the community, our
Yes.
freelancers. And
Yes.
we started supporting each other. And that's when we kind of looked at each other and realized like we can actually make this happen, and it can happen sooner than we thought. So
Yeah.
yeah, so at that point it was basically us bringing together all these little cells of people that had been planning or talking about unionization and bringing them all together so
Mhm.
that we could plan. So that was obviously like that's like step 0, us announcing our intent to unionize and filing with the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board for those who don't know.
Mhm.
So right now, like you said, we are waiting to hear back. We have not yet heard response from Paizo yet.
Mhm.
We haven't heard that, so we're just kind of waiting to see. We haven't heard anything negative either, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
So
I'm very much pro union, pro all of you
yeah,
getting
good.
massively improved working conditions. But at the same time, like yes, lawyers on their end have to like there do need to be meetings. I am curious though,
Oh
and I
yeah.
didn't think of it till just now. Like, are you all still fully remote? I know like the option is to stay remote.
Mhm.
So
Um
you're not in the office.
I am not. So the way that it is right now is we do have some people that never were remote, like our warehouse obviously has to
Of
be
course,
there. I
yes.
mean, if there was a way for them to stack, boxes and unload a shipment remotely, I'm sure they would love it. But
One
yeah,
day.
yeah, one day. But no, they've been there the whole time. And
Yeah.
then we've got a few. It's mostly like management types folks who have been there, like
Mhm.
people that do the like accounting and stuff. There's been a few there, but at this point we have the option to come back into the office, and
Okay.
I think there's a handful of people that have taken them up on that, but most
Mhm.
of us remain remote.
I was just curious, like, I don't know the whole management team. I know the big
Mhm.
names, of course. I was just curious if there was like that awkward moment ever in the building now, like, if they're there, they walk by, like
Yeah.
like you don't like you definitely don't want to cause a scene, but like I'm a bit of a spiteful little champ, scamp, and like I could be like surreptitiously pointing at my shirt that says United
Oh
Paizo
yeah.
Workers.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
s- so, awesome. I lost my entire train of thought for my next bit. But so bit of a holding pattern. Very, very. From the people that I've talked to and the people I'm following, I'm keeping abreast of everything going on, and it's a lot. And I really appreciate all of you. Of course you're going to be passionate about this, but like letting us know because as you were saying, it was a month ago. That was right when you announced or when you shifted to the APs and modules. So like this past month for you, it must have been that added layer of crazy, right?
Yeah, oh gosh, yes. And it's I'm doing well, and it's like since we started taking concrete steps to make this happen, I felt a lot more hopeful and positive about
Mhm.
work, even when there are things that are still a problem. Like this more than just, cuz management was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to try to make things better." But this more than anything makes me feel hopeful. So I've
Yes.
still been I'm all the union organizing and talking with everyone and trying, like we're all trying to organize and contribute and keep abreast of what's happening. And
Mhm.
it is a lot. Like there's been a few times that, if I go to bed early, I'll have, like a page of like a Discord conversation to read through, or I have stuff on
Sure.
Signal, and I'm just like, oh, it's a lot. But I really do like I'm in really good spirits.
Good.
I'm obviously super busy,
Yes.
but I think that having this be as transparent as possible. Obviously, there's things that we won't share
Of course. Yep.
outside,
Hmm.
or that we won't share until we're ready to make an official statement. But I think it's important because really what this last month or so has shown us is that this community is very strong, and that I mean, that's really like the company's best asset is the
Yes.
people, like not just us as like the employees and staff, like the staff that are making the products, but
Mhm.
like the people playing the game, they really like a lot of them really do care about us, not just not Paizo, but like the people that make up Paizo. And
Uh,
so I think the company, it feels like they may be starting to realize that, like in terms of management.
mhm.
So yeah, so I've been super busy, but I'm very hopeful right now.
Awesome.
As
That's
as yeah.
that's awesome to hear. And absolutely, when I was chatting with Brian, I remarked that like this all popped up, the allegations, of course, Sarah and Diego leaving, and like
Mhm.
hearing the impassioned people, like Brian brought up a point, like this isn't casting shade in any direction, but like customer service people in companies typically don't have this sort of impact, or reaction to, um, when things happen. Like typically, a customer service person could be loved or hated. These are my words. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but like, but then the love, the people I talk to, they're like, yes, this is all good, but I'm still broken up over Diego and Sarah. I'm like, that's totally valid. Feel your
Mhm.
feelings, but it's the customer service people have made such a relationship with people, and you all make yourselves available to these games. I've
Right.
Brian mentioned that there's spreadsheets of who's making what speaking engagements like this. I said, "Oh, I have Jenny on tomorrow." I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that on the spreadsheet." I'm like, "There are spreadsheets?" And he's like, "Yeah." So,
Yeah, we have one.
so that's awesome. I love that. Like you are organized. You're organizing, and I love that you made yourselves available to people like myself, No Direction, Southern Tomfoolery, to get these platforms to talk what you want to talk about. And it's a great relationship. I'm running Fly for Your Die offline, and like not a session goes by where I don't think of just a dumb little thing to send to Tandro. um and
That's
just
awesome.
and he's, yeah, and he's always receptive, and it's just I love these goddamn games so much, and the people who make them, like it's a we have such access in these wonderful dark times of the pandemic and social media and everything, that like it really does lift my spirits to know, like, oh, these people are people. Like these aren't like ancient tomes that we're playing out of, and like how it's written is how it is. Play your game.
Yeah.
I can look at the society scenario, and like, I have a question about the rabbit people. I'm gonna message Allison and figure
Yeah.
out. So like, it's just so damn cool to feel this level of connection, and I'm glad that you're all doing well with it, and it sounds like it's helping a bit, maybe.
It is for sure. No, I really like it. Like sometimes, certain members of our staff are less comfortable with being so connected, and I respect that. Like there's nothing
Sure,
wrong with that. They prefer to be a bit more like anonymous, or just like not anonymous but like detached
of
from.
course.
Yeah, or and they'll still communicate a lot with freelancers, and I mean, spoiler, like most of our almost all our freelancers actually actively play this game.
Hmm.
you know, I mean, that's how they get we recruit them a lot of times at
Yeah.
cons or from like Twitter, Discord groups, things like
Hmm.
that. Because it's a special kind of writing where you have to have at least a basic understanding of the rules to write for it. Like you don't need to know everything, but understanding how what the game actually is kind of a need. It's
Yes.
necessary. But yeah, but like some of us aren't involved in it, but I feel like a lot of us really are excited about talking to people in the community, and sharing it because it's our passion too.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I prefer this to working somewhere where the creatives are kind of like in an ivory tower, so to speak, and they don't really talk to people, because we're making this game for y'all. I mean, like this is not, this is for the people that are playing it. There's some opinions obviously that we don't choose to take into account. Like there is a sadly there is still a holdout of some very like toxic problematic people
Hmm.
that play. I mean, we can stop them from coming to events and things like that, but we can't
Sure.
stop them from buying the book and like reading it. But
Hmm.
most of our community is really awesome, and even the ones who tend to be maybe a little negative, a lot of times when you talk to them you can figure out like, oh, they're just annoyed about this, or
Yes.
they're just bad at communicating, maybe that's
Hmm.
but they're not bad people. So I really like it too, and
Yeah,
I think that's what's allowed us to well, I won't say we've succeeded until we know.
of
I
course.
mean, when if the company voluntarily recognizes us, that is great. Like that is a successful thing, a cause for celebration. But when we really will have succeeded is, I think, when we've negotiated our first contract with them and it's been approved. That's when I'll say like, okay, this is victory.
Mhm.
Because but I think we wouldn't have this level of like notoriety and publicity and support if it weren't for that. Like we couldn't without this community. I don't know if this could have happened. Like if we could have
Sure.
unionized and come out and said it to the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So
Stepping out without
yeah.
knowing who has your back is terrifying, and that's something
Oh
I
yeah.
chatted with, the other day, like, the concerted effort of, the employees who are doing this stuff, and then the separate, and I don't know who knows what about anything, but, like,
Mhm.
from an outsider's perspective watching, it very much felt like the freelancers, and they've said this, people have said this, like, unbidden by anyone, completely independent of their own volition, the work stoppage comes from them. And like having that support must feel pretty damn amazing uh that that rolled out that way.
Yeah, I and the thing about it is like the freelancers basically in a way they truly made this possible too. Like this was really a perfect storm of like, okay, we have to accelerate this now because we can.
Hmm.
The freelancers, they without talking to us, like after these allegations, I remember there was just this outpouring of people messaging. I mean, I'm friends with some of the freelancers and I have like a professional relationship with many of them, but
Hmm.
people were just emailing me, messaging me on like Discord, on Twitter, and it's like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And like, "Wow, is it really like this?" Or like, "Wow," asking all these questions, and then
Hmm.
just suddenly they all just formed up together
Yes.
and they were like, and I mean, I used to be a freelancer, so I heard a few things of like, well, we can't let this happen. But like I wasn't privy to their plans. Like we weren't the staff wasn't involved in that at all. They just like went out and they're like, no, we want our staff, like the staff that we care about and that we work with to be treated better.
Yeah.
And so they organized like what's I guess it's kind of a strike, like an unofficial strike that
Hmm.
they're doing right now. And
Yeah, the way I've been hearing it best described is like it is not a strike because we can't strike, but the thing we're
right.
doing has many of the positive effects of what a
Mhm.
strike would provide, and
Yeah.
that I love that. Just not gall, the chutzpah,
Yeah.
the verisimilitude to like we're gonna do this and we're just gonna do this. There didn't seem like there was any communication at all, and they were like, no, this is what we're doing. You know what?
Mhm.
And I just love the solidarity. It feels so damn good, like because just when I chose Paizo to be where I'm going to make creative stuff, um I could have made a D&D podcast and been marginally more visible, and the hashtags
Right.
would have. But like
Yeah.
when I started playing Pathfinder games, like the representation, like all the things Paizo loves loves to like tout kind of was shaken a bit by all those allegations and everything, and then to see this level of solidarity, teamwork, uh it's just like it has been a for me who was like, do I put stuff out now, is this the bad company now, to
Yeah.
see how people are standing by you all and how you're championing all this together. It's like, okay, no, this is still Paizo. We're just going to fix it.
Yes, exactly. And some people like I feel like I know some people, both freelancers and just people that play the game and buy our stuff, like I know they felt betrayed. I mean, they've
Yes.
said it and it just that makes me feel so terrible because I care about those people and obviously I want to keep my job and if they stop buying stuff like we won't be open anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's also I just feel awful because yeah, like all of the all of us like the devs, the designers, the editors, most of like our middle management, like we are all very dedicated to these things of like representation and being
Yes.
having a game that is openly more progressive and has, and presents those as the default options. Like,
Hmm.
we're and trying to make this industry and the hobby better. But it's been hard too to know, like, as an employee, kind of like how the sausage is made, and knowing that
Yes.
internally sometimes those values aren't really upheld as well as they could be. And again,
Yeah.
every no one's perfect, but we really wanted to improve things, but it's like we're not gonna it's not appropriate for us to go out and talk about it. So it's had to be the ex-employees coming out and like, whistleblowing, or freelancers, taking that first step, and that was so brave of them, because
Yeah.
as far as they knew, they would never get work from us again,
Sure.
although I'll tell you, like, most of the devs I know, and myself included, like, I will not, if anyone were to come to me and say, "Oh, you can't hire them, they're blacklisted because they participated in this demonstration," I'd be like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the
They
wrong thing to say to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but no, like, I'm gonna keep hiring them, and also, if you're going to demand that, then you need to furnish me a list of people that are as qualified as them, and, oh, hey, you can't. And to be
Yes,
clear, that's not happening. From everything I've
of
seen
course.
internally, our management has realized that they know how important the freelancers are to our
Hmm.
business model, and they have
Yeah.
realized they need to negotiate with these people, that they need to take their concerns seriously. So what I have heard is that they seem to be they are communicating with the freelancers some. And again, this is why it's like I hold out hope. Like, there is a lot of work to be done, but I think that at least some of, like, I feel like some of them are really starting to get it. Like, they're starting to hear all of us, and preparing. It feels like they're preparing to help us make these changes. But even if they don't, like, we're gonna, I mean, basically, if we're gonna push it through. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
we're gonna
There's
make this
a
happen.
there's a sentiment being passed around along Twitter is like, if there were going to be scabs, those people who would have been best suited to be scabs have made themselves okay, this is me butchering the thing. Like they're unscabbable because they've
Yeah.
already shown their allegiance
Hmm.
to where they're like, and that's huge as a bargaining. Like I'm no expert at all, but like as a bargaining negotiation thing, like going into like knowing that the people that you would try to go around to like no we still going to be operational it's just with new people those people the best people suited for that are not available and
Yep.
that's huge. I love it. And a thought I had while you were talking about the the values Paizo espouses. Just yesterday, me being very much online, I was seeing people saying like, "What's the sexuality of this person?" I jumped on there and like, eh, all what I can't remember the exact line I said, but what I've heard over the years is all NPCs are, unless outright said, by nature. So like, there's none of this like uh, uh, around sexuality, just like they were like, "Oh, I saw him with this." I'm like, bi. They're all bi. Everyone's bi. It's the future.
Yep. Right.
And I just love like I can throw that out there and like I'm not gonna get more or less I won't get like flooded with you don't push your stuff onto this. It's not my stuff, friends.
Right. This
we
is right
have we have
from the game.
Yeah,
Like, this is from the company.
we have openly trans, bi, pan NPCs left and right. You just
Mhm.
aren't reading these books closely, clearly.
Right.
Uh, and
Yeah. And yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was just saying, and I just love that, like that is why this company is where I put my shingle or whatever that idiom metaphor thing is. Like I stand with Paizo because they aren't the people too scared to actually put in mobility aids. they, and I just it just fills me up with warm feelings. Oh, sorry, my phone's
Yeah,
blowing
no.
up.
Oh, you're good, you're good. I know how that is. And oh gosh, and like, so we originally had a plan, right? Just to kind of go back to like this process of
Sure.
getting trying to get, voluntarily recognized by the company. Um we had originally planned to do our public announcing and sending that email to the executives, stating our intention and inviting them to work with us. We had originally planned to do that not last week, but the week before.
Hmm.
But we weren't quite ready because we've been working really closely with CWA. They've been super awesome. Ted is our person that we've been consulting, and he wanted to make sure that we dotted all our I's, crossed all
Hmm.
our T's, because he said, he knows how passionate we are, and he understood the urgency of the moment, of kind of taking the momentum of everything that's been going on. But he also, he cautioned us not to rush because he's seen campaigns fail and he didn't want that to happen. So we actually ended up having to do it the week after. And I was like, oh shit, because I was out of town last week. I was seeing my family in Texas. And
Yeah.
so I was actually off work, but of course I was still working in terms of, UPW. So,
Hmm.
as a member, I'm just kind of checking, like, and comms are just blowing up because that's when we announced it. And I told my family, I was like, this is happening, so I'm probably going to be distractible. And my dad is, and most of that side of the family is extremely pro union. So they were, of course, like, he was a union steward for years
Yes.
with UAW, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome." And they're just like, "Yeah, we're proud of you." But it was kind of, it was a little bit wild to be dealing with that while I'm trying to visit family, and while there's other things. So I get it. I get
Yeah.
how it feels with the phone blowing up.
Yeah. People knew it's muted too, but like I just kept seeing the flash. I'm like, maybe it's actually important, and it's not. It's good.
Oh yeah, so
And
that's
and
good.
yeah. One of the great things that I'm seeing on Twitter from a lot of people is uh how many stories of like my family were in the union, my
Mhm.
grandparents did this, and like that's right. Like you can't just separate out like Tandro, the AP developer of Fly Free or Die, very much eat the rich. Uh, like I
Mhm.
he's a champion for union stuff left and right, and I love that everyone. It feels good to see that, like, we're not backing down. We know the work that's involved. We're not just asking for things to ask for things. Like, we're putting in the work. We have the background around it, and you said your family was union, so and
Mhm.
they're all for what you're doing with that. Uh, I'm just curious, like, because you made the move from Texas to Seattle for this. What's your family's like opinion of? Because I'm just curious how, like, I'm not so much in contact with my family, and I'm very much, this is a hobby, so like this isn't a
Right.
big thing like that. But like I try to tell my mom what I'm doing, and she's like, doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But she's like, and I said, here's a link, you can watch it on YouTube. You know what YouTube is? I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know if I like it. I'm like, okay, mom. But how is it? How is it for you to be like, I make the things. I'm moving to this place specifically to make games.
They were proud because they've known that I've always been like a writer, and they knew that what I really always have wanted to do is write, like, to find
Mhm,
a way to get paid to be creative. And so they understand that that is what this is. They
mhm.
don't necessarily understand what, like, anything about the game, and they
Yeah.
probably think it's weird. But, well, and as much as I'll roll my eyes at like Big Bang Theory, but at the same time, my dad and my stepmom watch that a lot, so like they at least know what D&D is. Like,
That's good. Yeah.
do they have the best impression of it maybe from that show? Like, maybe not, but they know what
No.
it is. So I feel like
Yes.
they kind of understand. But they are proud of me. And it's funny because I realized, like, I have friends at work that will send a copy, because when we contribute to something as like an author, we get a couple of copies. Like, we get contributor copies of it, as kind of part of the perk of, and like a staff member will get everything we publish, which I don't take everything because there's a lot, and
Boy, is there.
I don't need the pawn sets, like, they're great, but, like,
Yeah.
I primarily game online, so I'm
Mhm,
like, "I don't need that," but I'll leave that for someone who does.
mhm.
But, I recently like, I heard that, "Oh, yeah, I send my parents everything, and they don't get it, but they think it's cool to see my name on a book." And I was like, maybe I should do that." So I actually, when I visited, I took down a couple of, like, my APs that I've written and Tech Revolution, which I wrote about, like, 10,000 words, 12,000 words for that. And so I took those down and I showed my dad, and he thought it was cool. Like, he's like, "I don't know what this is," but he's like looking at the pictures and he's like, "Okay, there's a story here." So, but
Uh-huh.
he can show now he's like, "I'm going to show this," because he's friends with a guy who writes for the newspaper down there. And he's like, "I'm going to show him this so he can see,
Oh, that's
what you
awesome.
do." Yeah. So it's like, I feel like I was kind of afraid they would be weirded out more than they were.
Mhm,
So they're pretty supportive of it.
cool. And,
Yeah.
I do wanna say, thank you and everyone for all your work at Tech Rev, like, I love all the books. I have all the books. I've spent money
Mhm.
on all the books. But, like, Tech Rev, even more so than Starship Operations Manual, like, Tech Rev, right now, it's like, I have a couple games going and, another show starting in a couple months. But, like, our brains are just on fire with all the options, all the things we can do now with Tech Rev. And I'm curious, like, are you allowed to, like, or is it discussed like, oh, I did this. This is my thing in Tech Rev. Like, this is my item. Do you? It's such a collaboration. Is there
Mhm.
any sort of like ownership over like I am very proud of this thing in particular?
Yeah, I mean, we're allowed to do that for sure. They typically, so the good practice advice is that before a book comes out, don't talk about, specifics, because
Sure.
it is possible that things get cut or things get
Oh,
changed.
of course.
Yeah, always, even if it's good. Sometimes, like I was saying with copy fit and pagination, sometimes
Yes.
you're like, "Oh god, I have 2 extra pages." Like,
Mhm,
I love this, but we have to cut this.
mhm.
And maybe we'll use it another time. I mean, the person still gets paid,
Of course.
but it's
Yeah.
like, maybe we'll use it another time, maybe we won't, but
Mhm,
things do go to the cutting room floor. But once the book is out, people can talk about it. And I never did that in the past, but I've noticed a lot of people doing it. So I just gave in to the trend of like, all right, I'll talk about what I wrote. That's
mhm.
fine.
So, if I may ask, what is your favorite thing personally from Alien Archive 4 and Tech Rev that you did?
Oh gosh. Okay. Oh my. Okay, so I think Alien Archive 4, oh gosh, now I'm having a super brain fart, and I came up with them. The spores. Oh gosh, hold on.
The
The
N2?
N2 spores. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
yeah.
super proud of them
Yeah.
because originally, way back when I was just a freelancer, I wrote the Honor Bound Emissaries Starfinder Society scenario. And
Okay.
Thirsty, as part of my outline, he asked me to pitch 3 new species that could be from the Scoured Stars,
Oh,
originally,
wow.
and that they would be the Cryhome Freehold. And so I was like, okay. So
Mhm,
I did that. And so I came up with 3. There were the Signathrix, which are like the seahorse people, kind of.
mhm.
There's the Thier, which are gaseous people, that I'm really interested in exploring more, but we haven't yet. Maybe we will. I don't know.
Mhm,
And then the N2, but the Nolentu were N2 spores and these like bat-like creatures that had kind of, merged and evolved together. And
mhm,
so then when I was given some, words for Alien Archive 4, I was like, well, let's talk about them.
mhm.
So I was able to talk about the spores and list the Nolentu as an example of, symbiotes that have like evolved to work with them. And so I think that's cool because for me that's a culmination of something that we started like years ago that I've been
Mm.
involved in, and now it's an actual species with stats that you can
Yeah,
play. Like, cool.
yep,
So I'm proud of that. And then Tech Revolution, I think probably just like all the mechs that I mean,
of
all the mechs
course.
in general, but
Uh,
like,
yeah, when
Excuse
you
me.
agreed to do this, I was like, okay, at what point are we going to talk mechs? Because
Yeah.
you are a Twitter champion of, and if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please correct me.
Yeah.
Near Automata.
Oh, yes.
So I grew up very much Power Rangers. I've mentioned it like 4 times this chat
Yeah.
about like I'm like that is my connection to mechs. I've seen a Gundam here and there. I've
Mhm.
seen friends making Gundams. So like mechs are cool to me, but like I don't have anywhere near the connection to them that other people have. And you're championing of them. Like I'm gonna get into this. I don't really have the podcasting is its own
Mhm.
money sink, to be honest. But like watching stuff. Mechs, I love. They're great. I kind of threw one at some of my players, and it was more or less just a combat where they just fought a big ass robot. But
Yeah.
the work done in the mechs. Do you have a favorite mech? Because I was looking at them like we really got the Aslanti. I love that the space fascists got their own mechs.
Yeah, yeah, and I did the Aslanti ones. I
Oh,
did
did
that
you? That's
one.
awesome.
I did. I did the Vescarium mechs, and
Okay.
then there was one other one I did that I'm not gonna remember unless I get my book, but I'm not gonna
Hell
run
Knight?
over there.
No, you're good. No, you're fine.
No, it was the Hell Knights, yes.
Was it? Oh, that was
I
the dog one was one of my favorite, or not the Hellhound
Yeah,
rather.
the Hellhound is probably one of my favorites. I also
Yep.
really like the Warmander, like the Vesk, like, tank mech.
Yes.
I told Compton because he's the one who developed at least that section.
Mhm.
I was like, I want to call this a skitter tank, but we could also call it a Warmander because that probably sounds more dignified. And he went with a Warmander, but like it will forever in my heart be known as a skitter tank.
That's awesome. And just one last thing on mechs. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
the swap out heads, the customization rather, I guess is a better way of
Mhm.
putting it, is just so damn cool. And
Oh yeah.
I'm in talks with some of my players about what they want to do with mechs, because I'm like, it's here. We need to do something with it. We're not wasting. So
Yeah.
love it.
And there's a lot under the hood with creating a mech from scratch. So I would definitely recommend, letting them play with things that are in that book, or like building something yourself
Mhm.
and then letting them play it, and then maybe they can customize, and then eventually
Yeah.
if they really like it, they can make their own, like the way you'd make a starship. But playing mechs is like super easy because it's just regular combat. You just
Yeah.
have more things you can do because
Yep.
you're in a big stompy robot
Mhm.
that might even have like magic circuits and stuff like that. So no, I have really enjoyed it. In my home game, we have like a side plot, like the B team, that are they're like mech knights of Iomade, that they have like
Oh,
this like
nice.
yeah, they have this like holy mercenary unit that's called her
Mhm.
12th act. And so we all have a
Oh my
mech.
god.
And it's so fun. And it's funny because that has almost taken over for me in terms of our game. I'm always like, okay, I like my character, but when are we gonna play the Mexican?
That's
But
amazing.
yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. I recommend mechs to everybody.
Yeah. In the second season, second chapter of the pod, I helped very poorly. I've come a long way since then, but we made a space paladin for one of my players, and she is a paladin of
Nice.
Iomide. And I
Yes.
was like, she had to the player had to step away from the pod just for health reasons, and that sucks. But like I can't get away from thinking of like the cathedral ships are so thematic for Iomade. Like I
Hmm.
can only imagine how just glorious the mechs are going to look like. I love
Oh
that.
yeah.
Her 12th act. I'm gonna tell my friend to listen to this episode to hear about that. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, it's so fun, and my characters, and I'm not gonna like get you in too far into let me tell you about my game, but no, Mike in that one, my character, because Thirsty is our GM, and he gave us like a pre-made character and a mech,
Mhm.
and he's like, because we'll play like 5 sessions with our regular characters, and then we'll do like one. And then we'll start like it's like between arcs almost like
Sure.
and then we'll come back to it after another arc is completed. But
Mhm.
he just gives us these characters, and their names apparently are some kind of like deep lore Warhammer 40K reference, I guess. But so their names are like Tempestum, Mortuum, and Ignatus. And he gave us these characters with nothing. He's like, I don't know, just like role play them. And so we gave them our own personalities. So my character is like the super crusader, like she's the paladin, like she truly, believes in all of this, and she's like
Mhm.
going to save people. And then we have our like mercenary who's kind of like battle veteran, like, all right, like let's just get this job done. And then we have the absolute like asshole guy who's he uses like a really jerky British accent and everything. It's so good. Like I just love that group. But anyway, yes, mechs and Iomade mechs. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Fantastic. Awesome. So I guess we could get back to the larger
Yeah,
conversation.
back to the union.
The yes. You're I unless you have more to discuss, like I wrote little notes here or there about like things I
Mhm.
want to talk about. I talked to Brian last night about the shirts, the logo for United Paizo workers, like that money on shirts and merch is going to the effort, which
Yes.
I love. I'm so glad because when I first started seeing merch, I'm like, the tiny cynic in me was like, I need to do research before I spend money.
Yeah.
Just in case, like someone was just like, haha, I'm making things. But now that I know, like the money the art's legit, the shirts are legit.
Yep.
Everyone's like, it's going back to the thing, and I'm like, oh hell yes, I'll get that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so that is just fantastic.
Yeah, and I guess we worried that it's possible, like, we've asked people not I mean, like, we've said people can use our logo, for, stuff on Twitter, like, use it on your social media, stuff like that,
Mhm.
but we don't want people to monetize it because, again, like, it is meant to go towards the effort,
Absolutely,
but,
yes.
I feel like there is a slight risk, like, we all do, like, someone could try to do, like, knockoff items. I hope that
Mhm.
doesn't happen, but if it does, just keep in mind that our unitedpaisaworkers.org, our
Yes.
store is tied to that, and anything that's not linked to our store is going to be a fraud. So,
Okay.
you
Good.
know,
Excellent. Yeah. And
yes, those listening, keep that in mind. Just look at our
yes.
website. We'll
Yep.
have all the links.
Yep. And I will be posting all the links on social media too, and get people to buy some stuff. It's a damn good logo.
Oh, it's so cool. I love it. Yeah.
People I can't like the Twitter chatter around like, is that a kobold hammer or is that a
Mhm.
kobold holding it? And people are like, I didn't think people. I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, I didn't know people were going to get it so quickly. But yes,
Yes, and then
kobolds fight better together. I think is
yep,
the
yeah, together, yeah, together kobolds strong or kobolds fight better together.
yeah.
And, it's also apparently a kind of a reference as well to a kobold union that appears in Agents of Edgewatch that
Oh, that's right.
yeah, so we're kinda like, "Yep, nope, this is"
That is like the AP I've not read because some
Yeah.
months ago I was promised a spot to play it offline. It's like, okay, cool. I won't, because what I typically do with all Paizo things is I buy all the things
Mhm,
as money allows, of course. But then like I just become a sponge and like, how can I reference this and like it's all a shared universe kind of thing. Back to my thing about continuity and references. Like I
mhm.
use all of it, but Edgewatch was one. I was like, okay, I want to play that one, but I don't want to go in having to hamstring myself and not not metagame. But awesome, Kobold Union,
Yep. We liked it because
love it.
we talked a lot about, what could we use for our logo,
Mm.
and we talked about we're like, we don't really wanna use the golem because there's also some, like, there's some issues there with kind of appropriating, like, Jewish,
See,
like
I've asked people. So just as a tiny aside,
Mhm,
like I would hear like, oh, like I would look at golems and I'm like, I am learned enough that I know other uses of the word. Is this fine? So being very much that white dude, I went to a Jewish friend of mine. I'm like, hey, I was gonna throw a cybernetic golem at you. Is that
mhm.
okay? And she's like, yes, it's okay. Just like don't be weird about it. Like, oh,
Right.
okay, fine,
Yeah,
cool.
and
I
it
feel
and it just
better.
And it just depends because, like, I mean, and again, it's like no community of people is a monolith. So
Exactly.
some people would probably be kind of offended by that, or like, hey, we'd rather not see this used for, a secular purpose or a non-Jewish like purpose or
Hmm.
whatever. But some people like legitimately are like, no, that's cool, I'm fine with it. But
Yeah.
we didn't want to have any of that conversation
Sure.
associated with. Also, because it's a Paizo thing, we're like, I mean, we are Paizo, we're part of Paizo, but we kind of want to have our own identity. And
Of
we talked about a
course.
lot of things, but when they came up with the kobolds, it was like, because they're canonically unionized, we're like,
Hmm.
yes, that's it. That's what we want to use. So I like it a lot. I think that they did the folks who worked on that design did a great job, and I think the strength of that design has definitely played a role in how successful at least our publicity, kind of our PR has been, because it's solid, it's readable, and people like it. So
Hmm.
people want to have a shirt or a mug with that cool logo on it. So I think
Yeah.
that's helped a lot.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's basically all I have. I mean, if there's anything like I haven't brought up that you really want people to know, to talk about, totally here for it. These are interviews. These are like times that I want to, but these are hangouts. So when you were talking about your game, absolutely, that was a perfectly valid topic to discuss.
Awesome.
Um, so I guess I'll ask. On top of all the work you're doing between developing and unionizing,
Mhm.
organizing, what kind of games are? How many games and what's your kind of gaming schedule like?
Well, right now, my gaming schedule has been pretty light
Mhm.
because I also have to kind of keep things open in case I want to play, especially when I was in org play. Like if I wanted to run or play with some people in the community, and I've also been busy, obviously,
Sure.
and with freelance as well. So I right now I'm in one game that is regular. It's a continuation of a game we played several years ago. It's that one that Thirsty's running. It is a Starfinder game
Mhm.
using it's Starfinder setting, but it also has an expanded setting that is Thirsty's homebrew.
Nice.
And it's really cool. So we do that. That's kind of my major game.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that group will continue indefinitely. And I am working on attempting, like, I'm gonna run like a one shot of Bluebeard's Bride, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game
Ooh.
of feminine horror that I'm gonna run on Halloween for some people, and then I am hoping to get my own Starfinder campaign that I'm running off the ground, and I may be streaming that on my Twitch channel just for funsies
Yeah.
in January is when I'm trying to get it started, but
Mhm.
there's just so much going on that it
Of
might be a bit
course.
later. It might be a bit later than that, but
Yeah.
the campaign will be homebrew. Like I will be writing it, but the setting will be like Starfinder,
Yeah.
Packed Worlds
Pack
and
rules.
and the
Yep.
vast that we know.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. I love it. I watch, listen to damn near every Starfinder podcast
oh
out
yeah.
there at this point because it's just a great community. I have people like and I self-deprecating to a fault. We've been doing this for a couple years, and people seem to like some of our stuff. And like, I see new people popping up. I'm like, tell me about your story, friend. Let me, and I just love that people are telling their stories, and I love the APs. But to hear people making homebrew stuff, it just feels so damn good to see it expanded. At one point, like 2 months ago, there were three different Starfinder podcasts that I love to death that were all on the planet of Triaxis, and hearing how different everyone's take is it's just so good and so rich to me.
Oh yeah, no, I really like that too, and that's the other thing is I would like to stream it just because I want that to be another place to kind of have more conversations about Starfinder. And
Mhm.
I already have a streaming platform. It's pretty small, but I mean, it could grow. But it's more about I just want to see if I can spread, Starfinder a little more. 'Cause
Yeah,
I love the game. It's
yeah.
awesome, and our setting is really cool. And just the nature of it being big, we don't get to delve deep into everything. But
Hmm.
podcasts and streams. Our and fan now with Infinite, like, the fan content that we're
Oh,
gonna be able to get, like, that's
Infinite, yeah,
yeah,
it's mind blowing. I cannot.
yeah.
I have like a a scenario I was been pecking away at all year, not very diligently, but then when Infinite, I'm like, oh wow, I could probably put that there, and it's so cool that folks have that option. I haven't looked too closely at it because I need to do a lot of work before I look at posting anything, but yeah, Infinite is it's huge, game changer for as far as like content people can latch onto.
Oh, yeah, and it's just, like I think all of that is going to help us, really dig deeper, whether it's canon or even if it's, like, not canon, it's fine. I just think it'll
Mhm.
be cool to see more of the universe come to life, so
Exactly, and yeah, and you get to focus on what you wanted to expand
Mhm,
on at the time, but couldn't. But now, like when we watch your stream, when we see your stuff, like this is where this is where Jenny wants to take her people. This is
mhm,
good and great, and I'm so looking forward to it. I will be there. Schedule permitting, tuning into that
awesome.
immediately.
Thank
So
you, yeah.
yeah, so that's about all I have. Where can people find you that already don't already for the few that follow me listening to this that don't already follow you, where can we get you at social media?
Sure. So I am on Twitter. It is at Jen Jski. So JEN, like Nancy JSKI. So just kind of my name shortened.
Mhm.
And then I am on Twitch as Jezebel77. That's where I stream. I am kind of on a hiatus right now.
Of course.
I was streaming, like, just video games I like to play, like, I did my whole, like, Drakenir playthrough, and then I've done, like, another playthrough, and then I've done, like, random just when I feel like playing games, and we
Mhm.
inevitably talk about we talk about Paizo stuff as well as
Cool.
just random topics, but yeah, I should hopefully be back to that, by the beginning of next month,
Mhm.
so check it out, and I hope to see people out there, like, I'm very open to chatting with people and responding to things, so
Cool.
as I can, but yeah.
Of course, yeah, yeah. So awesome. Well, that is the show. Thank you, Jenny, for hanging out with me today. And folks, next episode, I promise, will be a return to the adventure of the crew of the Bizarre Encounter. But these are like I'm like recording and then dropping these like the next day. So I may put this one out Friday because I put Brian's out this morning. So I may give what audience I have a day of breath to breathe without seeing me do an episode drop. But awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.